Romans 8 verse 1 and 2. The Bible says there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who do not walk according to the flesh but according to the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. The Bible says there is therefore no condemnation. Now, the second category are those who cannot forget what others have done to them. These are the believers who are battling with unforgiveness, bitterness, and resentment towards those who have wronged them or offended them. These are the ones who cannot forgive, and we've spoken about that. The third category and the last category are those who cannot forget what they have done to others. These are believers who find it difficult to forgive themselves. Forgiveness is three-dimensional. It has a vertical dimension, a horizontal dimension, and it is also a circle. That means you receive forgiveness from God, forgiveness from people, but you need to forgive yourself. As a matter of fact, may I also include another dimension in quotes. You need to also forgive God, quote unquote. Not because God has done wrong. God is sinless, God is perfect. But sometimes in our deception, we are deceived into thinking that God has wronged us. Now, if you are in such deception, forgive God, quote unquote, for your release. But you must learn to forgive yourself. Some of you are having a grudge against yourself. Some of you, you constantly build a case against yourself. Some of you hate yourself, and if you hate yourself, you cannot love others. The reason why you find it difficult to respond to the love of others, to receive love from others, is because you feel that you are not deserving. The reason why you can't respond to the love of your wife or the love of your husband or the love of your children is because you think the worst about you. You have been building a case against your life for years. You convict yourself all the time. You build a case all the time. When people tell you you are a good person, you are a nice person, instead of receiving the compliment, you struggle in your mind to find something wrong. In fact, you don't even struggle. You just go into your mind, you find something wrong about yourself to obscure or to erase the good thing, the good compliment that has been given to you. People who have a case against themselves find it difficult to receive a compliment. That is why some ladies, when you say, "Oh, Mam Spanbani, you look so stunning, you look so beautiful," it's not a problem. Because whenever you tell them you look stunning, you look beautiful, they think the opposite is true. Because they feel they don't deserve good things. They hate themselves. You see, the Bible says you need to love God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. You can never love your neighbor until you've learned to love yourself. You can never accept people until you've learned to accept yourself. The reason why many people, you reject people's advances to befriend you, and you are building walls, and every time people come next to you, they feel this wall. It's because you are rejecting yourself. You feel that you are unworthy. There's a situation of a young girl who was in courtship with a brother, and this brother was showering this girl with love, buying her gifts and so on, and this girl broke the relationship, broke the courtship. Reason: he loves me too much. I can't love him back the same way. What's the problem? She felt so unworthy for such love. Can you imagine your husband trying to embrace you, telling you all the lovely words? And in your mind, you think it's the opposite, it's the opposite, it's the opposite, it's the opposite. And he gets frustrated to get to you. It's very difficult to love a person who has a low self-esteem. who devalues themselves. It is very difficult because before people can place value on you, you need to learn to place value on yourself. You need to understand you are valuable and precious before God, and you need to see yourself as God sees you. Because it doesn't matter how other people see you, if you don't see yourself the way God sees you, that's not going to help you. And most of us, because we have a case against ourselves, we have built a case against ourselves. We are too hard on ourselves. We have not forgiven ourselves. I made so many mistakes in my life. We live in regret. I've made so many mistakes. If I didn't do this in 1973, this would not have happened. If I didn't do this in 1975, this would not have happened. If I didn't do this, this would not have happened. So you live in regret. You have not forgiven yourself. So all these categories of people are the people that need to break away from the past. One common thing about all these people in these categories is that they are all chained to the past. All these people must learn to shut the door of the past and move into their glorious future. Because of guilt, shame, and condemnation of the past, many are not able to approach God in confidence. Many are not able to stand against the enemy and negative circumstances in life. They are not able to live a victorious Christian life. They are not able to wage effective and successful spiritual warfare. Many are not able to approach God with boldness and faith. Many are not even sure of their salvation. Many are not able to see themselves as God sees them. Many are not able to grow and move forward spiritually. All these believers must learn to forget the past if they desire to move into their glorious future. Listen to me before we begin to prepare to round up. Your past is like a corpse strapped on your back. You need to get rid of that corpse. Romans chapter 7 verse 24. This is Paul speaking. Listen to what he says. What a wretched man I am. Who will rescue me from this body of death? Now, you need to understand what Paul was saying here. Now, did you know that when the ancient Persians found a man guilty of murder, they punished him by strapping the corpse of his victim to his back? That's what they used to do. They will strap the body of a dead man, and that was the punishment. They will strap that body, that corpse, on his back. He will walk around with that corpse. The weight of it dragged him down. The presence of it constantly tormented him, and the sight and the smell of it drove others away. Eventually it robbed him of his life. Can you imagine walking around with a corpse strapped in your body? It's heavy, it's stinking. Wherever you go, people don't want to be next to you. It robs you of your life. This was a punishment meted out by the Persians to murderers in those Bible days. That's the picture Paul had in mind when he wrote, "Who will rescue me from this body of death?" You can no more live with the dead things of your past clinging to you than Paul could. The things of the past are dead things in your life. And if you live in the past, you are like this man who is walking around with the corpse strapped on his back. That corpse is the old you. In water baptism, when we go down, we identify ourselves with the death and the burial and the resurrection of Christ. But when we go down, we bury the old man of sin. And when we rise up in newness of life. But when you relive the past, you exhume the grave where you buried that old person, and you strap him on your back and you walk around with him. That's the picture Paul had in mind. That's why you need the power of God to cut the cord between you and the past. Whether it's past failure or past relationship, get rid of the negative effects of the past. Don't walk around with them on your back or on your mind. Get rid of the past. Now, why do many battle to deal with their sinful past? Number one, because they don't feel forgiven, and therefore they conclude that they must not be forgiven. Forgiveness is not a feeling. You don't feel forgiven. You believe you are forgiven when you confess your sins or when you receive Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. Many people have not learned to receive God's forgiveness by faith. I find that when I do wrong before God, because of the guilt and the condemnation, I'll go before God and I'll confess and I'll ask God to forgive me. Many years ago as a Christian, I would ask God to forgive me, and I would stand on the word of God and just declare I'm forgiven, but I'll still carry the guilt of it. Until I learned a secret that you have to learn to receive forgiveness by faith. It is by faith. So I started believing by faith I'm forgiven. So many don't feel forgiven. You don't have to feel forgiven. The word of God says, if you come to Christ, your past, you are a new creature, your past is past. If you miss it as a believer, 1 John 1:9 says, if you confess your sins, is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Number two, they cannot forget what God has forgiven. God has forgiven and forgotten. Isaiah 43 verse 25, I am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake, and I will not remember your sins. Now, if God has chosen to forgive and forget your past sins, then why do you bring it back? God has decided not to remember your sins. Now, why are you bringing it back? God knows that it is detrimental to your future. God wants to bless you. When God sees you, he sees you in him, not outside of him. Oh my God, these people are not hearing me. When God sees you, he sees you in him. That is why I like the prophetic anointing, because with the prophetic anointing, you can go to a man who is drunk and say, thus says the Lord, and tell them, I see you traveling all over Canada preaching the gospel. I see you planting churches. I see the dead being raised. And you can begin to prophesy, and people can look at you and say, doesn't this man know that this man is a drunkard? Doesn't this man know that this man is an adulterer? No, listen to me. A prophet sees a person in God. God sees you in him. He doesn't see you according to the mess that the devil has gotten you into. He doesn't see you according to the mistakes that you have done. That is why mistake does not cancel purpose. God sees you in him. Number three, they are living in a memory of their sinful past. That's why they find it difficult to receive forgiveness. We've spoken about memory. Number four, Satan accuses them. Revelation 12 verse 10 says, for the accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down. The devil is the accuser of the brethren. Listen, Bazalwan. When Jesus died on the cross, I told you the record of your past sins was nailed on the cross. God no longer has a record of your past. But there is someone who has a record of your past. The people that know you and the devil. Therefore, anytime your past is brought to destroy you, it's not God. The devil is the accuser of the brethren. You cannot accuse a person without the record of his past. And this will help us understand the present day ministry of Jesus. The Bible says he is our heavenly advocate. 1 John 2 verse 1. My little children, I write these things to you so that you may not sin. But if you sin, you have an advocate with the Father, Jesus. Now, what's the job of an advocate? He represents someone who is guilty. Am I right? Now, there must be a court in heaven. There must be the accuser, there must be the accused, there must be a judge, and there must be an advocate. Now the devil is the accuser. Who is the accused? It is you and I. Who is the judge? God. Who is the advocate? Jesus. So every time you do wrong, the devil accuses you before God. And you say, "Ah, Lord, yeah, she's not good. How can you use Ndobe? He lost his temper yesterday. Yeah, how can you use Ndobe?" And God looks at the whole thing and he says, "No, he's right. Ndobe has lost his temper yesterday." But Jesus rises up as the advocate and he says, "Father, it is right. He lost his temper yesterday, but remember, Father, what you said in your word, that if we confess our sins, you are faithful and just to forgive and to cleanse." He confessed his sins. And furthermore, Father, look at the nail prints in my hands. It is for the very same sin that I went to die on the cross so that he might be free. And God looks at everything and he says, "Ndobe is acquitted of all the charges. The price has already been paid." This is the present day ministry of Jesus at the right hand of the Father. When the Bible says he's an intercessor, intercession does not necessarily mean that Jesus is in heaven praying in tongues. He might be doing that, I don't know. But the word intercession should not be confined to prayer. The word intercessor means a go-between, a mediator. It means someone who stands in the gap. So that's what Jesus does. Number 4, many people struggle because they don't understand God's grace. Because they don't understand God's grace, they struggle to get God's forgiveness. They reason you can't get nothing for nothing in this world. So they want to pay to get forgiveness. And how do they think they will pay? By inflicting pain on themselves. Some of the fastings we do, we are simply punishing ourselves. It's actually a hunger strike. I have sinned before God, so maybe to please God, I have to fast. I don't think God can forgive me just like that. Just like that. No. There must be a little bit of punishment. How can it be? How can it happen just like that? They don't understand grace. So they try to punish themselves. They think they deserve a little bit of punishment. They forget that grace means that Jesus was already punished so that they could be acquitted. So most of the time we punish ourselves. I'm not eating. I'm fasting for 30 days to atone for my sins. You are going back to purgatory, which is a demonic doctrine. A story is told, one counselor, psychologist, Christian psychologist, he said there was a woman in Canada who had done wrong. And this woman had done so much wrong in her marriage, it destroyed her marriage. And she would wake up in the morning barefooted and stand on the snow for 3 hours to atone for her sins. And many of us are trying to atone for our sins. We don't understand God's grace. Number 5, they have a wrong concept of God. Some can't forget what God has forgiven because they have a wrong concept of God. What is the God of your understanding like? Distant, personal, loving, or judgmental? Available or absent? You see, we are affected by what happened in our homes. Every parent stands in the place of God until a child can know God for himself. God is a provider, but from whose hand do we first receive? From our parents. God is a forgiver, but where do we get our first and most enduring concept of how forgiveness works? Our parents. Now, if you were raised by someone who said they forgave you, yet they kept pulling your file and constantly reminding you of the mistakes, you were probably given a distorted picture of God. Listen, Bazal, sometimes you find that your daughter, who is doing grade 12 or grade 11, unfortunately gets pregnant out of wedlock. And you know what we do? Some of us, we might have experienced that from our parents. Some of us, I like to believe there's no one doing it here, but some of us, our parents would say to us, "I'm sorry, I've made a mistake," and our parents will malign us. We will become the black sheep of the family. They will tell everybody about this useless child who has gotten to get a child. All the neighbors will know. All the relatives will know. 6 months later, they are still talking about it. 8 months later, they are still ridiculing you. You have said, I'm sorry, but you are still being ridiculed. 9 months later, you give birth to a child. You are still being ridiculed. Your child is called all names, even though the child is innocent. You go back to school. Your mother is very quick to remind you that I'm living with your bastard even as you go to school. They talk about you. When they want a picture of a bad example, you are always a point of reference. Don't be like Zodwa. She went and got a child. By that time, the child is 2 years old. The child is 5 years old. They are still talking. 10 years, they are still talking. Now, your father is talking, your mother is talking. Now you are a child of God. When you come to God and you've done wrong and you say, Father, forgive me, your parents have already given you a distorted picture of God. And you think God is like your parents. If your parents can hold a grudge against you for so many years, surely God must be like that, you conclude. As parents, we need to make sure that we don't give our children a distorted picture of who God is. Now I want to push this to a close now so that we can pray. I'll give you 2 examples and then we pray. Each time you pray the words, Our Father, what do you see? An angry God you can never please? An absent God who is not there when you need him? An accusing God who never lets you forget anything you've done? How you related to your earthly parents will largely determine how you relate to your heavenly Father. You need a whole concept of God. And many of us, we don't have a whole concept of God. We can't relate to God as a Father. We can relate to Jesus. We can relate to the Holy Spirit. But we can't relate to God as Father. Because we have a distorted image of God. And this image has been distorted by our earthly fathers and our earthly parents. As parents, it is in the home where forgiveness is modeled, where acceptance is modeled. Listen to me. My son, who is 21, went through a rough time in his life as he was growing. He ended up in a challenge. And as a father, I could have been so angry with him. But the Lord said this to me. He said, this is the right opportunity for you to reach him. Show him love and care and support when he feels he least deserves it. And I did that and I connected. Because when teenagers are growing, remember, this is a man in the making. There are a lot of changes that they feel in their body. You cannot treat a teenager like a small boy anymore. They are in transition. Sometimes they don't understand themselves. They don't understand their emotions. And they need a loving father that will guide them. And that is where you can win your kids or lose your kids. And when I showed my son love, acceptance, we connected. And you know what I did? When he turned 21, I had bought him a car, a Golf, to go to school. When he turned 21, he said, Dad, you know, my lifetime dream as a young man is to drive a Mini Cooper. And the Lord said, get him one. I said, trade this one in, I'll put the deficit, the balance. He did. And I got him the Mini Cooper. And today, my son will kill, no, quote unquote, to protect his father. In the ministry, when he shows up, everybody feels that Ndobe is here, even though physically the father may not be here. He's here in the form of a son. He has taken ownership. His life has changed. He has come through as a son. Because when he was going through the worst I, by the grace of God, showed the heart of Father God. And I connected with him. And I loved him when things, not when things were good, but when things were rough. When he had done things that hurt me and my wife and family. When he had done things that I was not pleased with. You see, most of us, we think that we have to perform to earn God's love. Because the way we've received love and acceptance in our homes was performance-based. You were called a good girl if you washed the dishes. You were called a good girl if you passed at school. You were only affirmed if you did something right. But if you didn't, you were called all kinds of names. So we always feel that for God to be pleased with me, I need to fast for 10 days. To get God's love and approval and favor, I have to fast for 40 days or for 10 days. To get God's love and approval, I need to read the Bible every day. To get God's approval, I need to pay my tithe. All those things are good, but you don't do them to earn God's love. You do them because you love God. There's a difference. So, our relationship with God, most of us, is performance oriented, because at home we had to perform to get acceptance and love. Every time you are going through a tough time, you are going through a rough time, you know you will be called, labeled the black sheep. You are rejected and you are accepted. So because of that, when we come to Christ, when we are born again and we are going through a hard time, because our parents rejected us, we feel that even God, this time around, I don't think God can use me. I'm so useless. I made this mistake and that mistake.